And welcome back. As we continue working on our game, let's go ahead and actually do something we could have done a little bit sooner, but I wanted to make sure we had some time to kind of get to learn the 3D space, and that is to go ahead and use prefabs. Now, of course, we've done prefabs before in my previous course, so let's go ahead and actually create a new folder, and we're going to call this prefabs, just so we can organize that in there. And let's go into that prefabs folder, and what we want to do is take something that we're repeating over and over again and make it so that way we can have it as a pre-made object. And the thing that we can see right now that we're doing that with is with our projectiles. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn these on here just so we can see that very easily. Boop. Okay, so our projectiles, of course, are coming in different directions and stuff like that, but these projectiles, of course, are all unique. And while that's fine, if I were to want to, let's say, I decided I want to make these projectiles a little bigger or a little smaller, I'd have to go and do that for each one of these. Or if I wanted to, let's say, change the color of each one of these. I could do that, but I would need to go again and do each individually. So instead what I'm going to do is make a prefab to speed up that process. So I'm going to start first by deleting out some of these extra prefabs. And let's go to my projectile right here. And all I'm going to do to turn it into prefab is just drag that here into the prefabs folder. And you can see now we have a projectile prefab. Now, just as a quick reminder how projectiles work, let me just go ahead and just add a few more in here to the scene. And then I'll just go ahead and move those over just so we can kind of see them, so that we can kind of get a nice good visual look at them here. With these projectiles, if I want to start manipulating them, I can of course go to the projectile object itself. I can drag that into the scene to add in my own unique one if I want, and so of course I have the ability to come in here and very easily manipulate this around. But if I wanted to transform this, let's say, and change the scale, if I were to take this one projectile, let me actually put that in my hierarchy so it's for the rest. And if I come in here to this one projectile and say, I want to make this one 1.5 times as large. And so now we have, of course, a sphere that is 1.5 times as large as yours. In fact, I can bring this over just for comparison. You can see how much bigger it is when we compare. Now that, of course, just handled one of these. But there's, of course, ways that we can go about handling multiple at the same time, which is one of the strengths of having prefabs. So let me just go to projectile 1 here. And you can see one of the ways we can change this is over here in the override section. You can see there's an option to revert or apply all. And the reason why I have that option is because, remember, I was playing around with this one and I went and changed this one. So, for example, I want to, let's say, apply this 1.5 size to everything. I can hit apply all. And you can see now every one of these has been changed to 1.5. If I click that again, you can see now there are no overrides. That's because, again, I apply that. But if I want to, let's say, go to the projectile prefab itself down here in the project folder, and let's just say I change this to 1, let's do 1 and 1. Just a simple thing here. All right. And so now that is applied there. You can see what happened when I did that and how it changed the projectiles themselves. You can see these are all now 1 as well. The other way you can get there, of course, is to take one of these prefabs. It doesn't matter which one. You can double click on it and actually go into the profile of it. So if I hit this little arrow right here, this will take you into the profile for that one. And you can do the same thing here. You can go ahead and adjust the scale, and then you can override that. So what I'm going to do, though, of course, is let's zoom back out here. Let's head out to look at our scene. And I'm going to go ahead and play around with these just a little bit. But there is a note I do need to make about prefabs, because up to this point we were just looking at scaling. But what happens if we add a material? So to demonstrate this, let's just go to our projectile here, and we want to, of course, give it a material where we can do that. So let's go to materials here, and I'm just going to go ahead and let's go ahead and add on the wall material just to start. So we get that blue, and now that that is applied to this one, we can go ahead and apply all just so we can see how easily that material goes across. But where this starts running into things is, let's just say I go ahead and do some different colors here. So let's just go ahead and just take the train one. I'm going to put it here, and let's put the player one, put it here. So now we have 2 different color spheres. And so what happens when I go ahead and let's say we go to the brown one, and we go ahead and say apply all? You'll notice that they all have now turned brown except for the red sphere. And that red projectile is like that because whenever you come in here and make a change individually to these, it's going to go ahead and say this is a new change. And it's only going to do that apply all on anything that hasn't had that change applied to it. So as soon as you hit override and you hit apply all, you'll notice that it, of course, then changes it. But now, of course, with this red one, if I go ahead and hit apply all, what color are we going to get? Notice we now have all reds, and that's because when I did that apply all that turned these all brown, what it did is it made that brown now the starting color for these. And so when I applied the red, it then overrode all that. Let's just see that one more time. So if I come over here, let's just say I take and let's put this bottom projectile, let's make that the wall material color. I'm going to put the spin color on, let's just say projectile 1. And if I go back to this one again, you can see if they're red, I don't have any apply all. There's a revert all there. All right. If I look at the other ones, let's go to the blue. And you can see, oh, we have apply all. So if I hit apply all, again, what color I should expect a blue, but on how many of these? Boop, 2. All right, plus 1 of the origin. This fourth one did not turn. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply that just so we can see how those are all going to be changed there. So that's just a little quirk to kind of keep in mind with materials. Now let's go ahead and do a little bit of cleanup here. I'm just going to go ahead and take these other projectiles. Let's take these out for a second. And what we want to focus on next is just prefabbing other elements of our game. So for example, if we look, we have our player. We can prefab the player. So now that is a prefab. We can also prefab things like our trigger space. So put that in there. And of course that is now prefabbed. I'm also going to do like my spinning object, and I think I'm going to maybe grab the dropper as well. So those are all, again, now prefabs that exist. If we look in the game environment, we can also do this with our things such as our obstacles or our walls. And so if we prefab those in there, we can just grab one of each. And what I'm going to do, actually, with the wall one, is I'm actually going to delete out my old walls. And then I'm going to take this wall here, and now I can add it in. And I'm just going to make my life easy and just duplicate that. And so what I'm going to do is grab this. I can then just slide that into place so that that now exists on the edge of the game world here. And now, of course, I'm going to need to grab another game wall. So I'm going to slide that, but I also need to rotate it. So let's go ahead and do that. Rotate that 90 degrees. And so then we can slide that right on up. And slide it right on over. And this might take just a little bit of finagling to get everything back to the way you want it. But the advantage of this is that now we're going to have the ability to come in here and easily prefab this in such a way that we will have a game world that is going to be pretty cool for us to actually do some rapid, quick changes with. I'm actually going to just spin around just a little bit more here and take a look at this back one here, because it does look like it's quite lined up. Scooch that in just a little bit. All right, and that is looking pretty decent here. But the reason why I said you want to prefab this is, for example, if I want my wall, I want to make this, let's say, just maybe a tad thicker. All right, we can easily do that here in our scale by coming in here and applying values to make this nicer. So I'm just going to go ahead and just apply some scaling changes here, just to make that a little bit nicer. And if we want to play around with our X, let's just say we make X2. You can see instantly how much thicker those walls have become. Even some of my obstacles now have been kind of absorbed in here, which is fine, because we can, of course, play around and move those later. Now, with all this prefabbing, let's go ahead and actually do a quick test just to make sure we haven't broken anything, because sometimes when you do that, you can run into some issues. So it doesn't look like I have any errors right now, so that's pretty good. But sometimes you can have that happen. For example, your projectile, if we go take a look at that, this might be a place where things break. Right now, mine, of course, still recognizes the player. So it was able to grab that, of course, and just put that in there as the appropriate thing. But this could be a potential area sometimes when you prefab. Sometimes these areas do break. So just if you start running into errors and something stops working, the first thing is making sure that when you prefab these, that nothing broke here inside the inspector. All right, another spot to go check, of course, is places like trigger space, because remember we did add some stuff there. And while it didn't throw an error for us, we can see that there is, with these different projectiles, there's currently none in here other than the one. And that's because we only have the one projectile. So let's just go ahead and duplicate to fill that up and drag those in to go ahead and fill that. So let me go ahead and go back to the trigger space. And I'm going to go ahead and add projectile 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Just so that we can have this properly filled. All right, that takes care of that. All right, and so let's just go ahead and add back in some speeds here for our player object. So I'm just going to go ahead. Let's add in some values here just so that way they have some variance. And I'll do one more. All right, and then of course, let's test it, make sure everything still works. And so boom, 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 you can see here they all come. Oh, that one's driving just a little bit slower, and there's our dropped object. Perfect. So looks like everything is working good. We of course now have our prefabs ready to go. Oh, I do see there is a error here, a missing reference. So if you look at trigger space, it didn't like something in there, but of course that is something probably because when we started this, remember before these used to be off. So let's just shut those off there. And let's go ahead and give that a quick save and retest that, see if we still get that same error. And of course, silly me, what I forgot to do when I did this prefab is of course make sure these were tagged as enemies, because remember that is of course how these are going to. I'm just going to go ahead and add this manually here. Not a big deal, I only have 5 of these, but obviously that's something to make sure that you do when you create those prefabs. Make sure that those tags stay on there. So now let's go ahead and give this another try here. There we go, we trigger that, you can see our obstacles are falling. So excellent. So it looks like things are kind of working the way they are. So I think we are set to go ahead and go from there.